Food bloggers, hi, how are you today? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Eat Blog Talk podcast. This is the place for food bloggers to get information and inspiration to accelerate your blog's growth and ultimately help you to achieve your freedom, whether that's financial, personal, or professional. I'm Megan Porta. I have been a food blogger for 13 years, so I understand how isolating food blogging can be. I'm on a mission to motivate, inspire, and most importantly, let each and every food blogger, including you, know that you are heard and supported. Do you ever feel like things are changing so rapidly with all the platforms that it's impossible to keep up with them? I feel like that all the time, especially platforms like Instagram. Jess Saunders from Vegan Punks joins me in this interview to talk about how to strategically grow a big Instagram account using a few simple concepts such as consistency, compound theory, which is that idea of just showing up repeatedly over and over and over until you see the results you want, and also doing a lot of experimentation. Growing a huge Instagram account will introduce you to new revenue stream, as well as many other good things that can come your way. Jess is so sweet. She brings such a great vibe to this conversation and gives us a ton of value, from overarching concepts to the nitty-gritty details of what is going to grow your Instagram account. This is one of my favorite ever Instagram conversations that I've had here on the podcast. It is so good. I hope you love it too. It is episode number 549, sponsored by RankIQ. Eat Blog Talk is thrilled to unveil the Eat Blog Talk Accountability Group, an exclusive community made for food bloggers who crave accountability, focus, and connection. We understand that not everyone is ready to dive into the Mini Minds group or the Masterminds program. That is why we've crafted this special offering for bloggers like you who want that extra push toward their aspirations but aren't yet able to make the financial or time commitment. Here's what the Eat Blog Talk Accountability Group has in store for you for this low introductory price of $34 a month. This ongoing membership has its own private Slack channel. You will gain access to a dedicated channel facilitated by the community manager at Eat Blog Talk, Taryn Soley, for questions, insights, and collaboration. You will get weekly accountability check-ins so you can stay focused and motivated with those weekly check-ins in Slack to track and achieve your goals confidently. You will have access to productivity focus sessions. Join these optional live Zoom sessions twice a week to boost your productivity by working alongside your peers and tapping into that collective energy. And you will get monthly group Zoom calls, replacing the former Clubhouse chats. Join these calls to connect, discuss current topics, share experiences, and celebrate achievements. Those calls will be hosted by me, Megan Porta, and I can't wait to see some of you there. If this sounds intriguing, head over to eatblogtalk.com/focus to sign up today. eatblogtalk.com/focus. Jess Saunders co-founded Vegan Punks in 2017 in order to show that vegan food is delicious, easy to make, and accessible. Prior to this, Jess was a social media lead at the world's first green energy company. Recently, Jess has over tripled her Instagram following to over 110,000 followers using a unique strategy and real formula that she developed over a number of months. Hello, Jess. So excited to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
Hey, Megan. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good. I always love it when people ask me back, like, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm good too. So thank you for that. We're going to have an amazing chat about Instagram today. I'm so intrigued to hear your strategies and your perspectives. But first, do you have a fun fact to share with us?
Yes, I do. For the past almost year, I've been fostering cats and kittens for a local cat rescue charity. And yeah, I've been doing that. We just got a new cat a week and a half ago, and she's very traumatized. And so she's going to be a bit of a slow burn for us, working on her, getting her to socialize, because she's very scared from all of the experiences she's had so far. It's very rewarding, and I really hope that we'll be able to get her a forever home.
Yeah, good for you for doing that. I love people who do that and put their love into that. Do you have a trick not a trick, but like, is there one thing that stands out for making animals comfortable who've been through trauma, or is it just like a case-to-case basis?
I think it's case to case, and it depends on what their experience are with people before. But this one, what we found is treats. So if they love food, find a food that they cannot resist, and every day, slowly but surely, she's remembering that we're bringing her. It's sort of like a little. It's called a licky lick. It's like a yogurt tube sort of thing. It's a funny name, but yeah, it's a yogurt tube, and she cannot resist it. So we've got her like, getting used to our hands being near her, but through the treat. But it's because she loves the food so much.
Oh, well, that's awesome. It sounds like you're the perfect people to do that.
That's so true.
The licky lick.
The licky lick.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
she
awesome.
can't resist.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. Love it. I would love personally to hear about your blog. I know you are an Instagram guru, but give us kind of a bit of a framework for where you started, like just a little bit about your blog first.
Yeah, of course. So we actually started our Instagram before the blog. So the blog came almost a year after the Instagram. And basically it was just because at the time, in 2017, like the vegan food scene wasn't, and the options that were available and the recipes that were available weren't quite what it is now. So our whole mission was to show that vegan food is delicious, easy to make, and most importantly, accessible, with all the cooking techniques and recipes that we were able to do with limited options in the supermarket. And it all just kind of grew from there, from being very overwhelmed and not sure what we're doing at all to, a couple of years later, quitting our jobs and going all in on it. And we also started a social media agency because my background is in marketing, social media marketing, and my husband, who is my partner in business as well as life, works in tech. So it's I think that's quite common in the food blogger scene, but it's a match made in heaven when there's such a tech element and such a creative element to running a food blog. So it works really, really well.
That sounds like an amazing partnership. I love it. So you started Instagram about 2017-ish, correct?
The Instagram was 2016, the blog was 2017. Yeah.
And then I guess, how has Instagram changed? Obviously, it was working for you then, but what made you, there's a lot of questions in there. So I'll go with the first one. How has it changed from then to now?
Oh, massively. It's a whole different ball game. So we didn't even have videos really back then. I think IGTV for the old
I remember
schoolers
that. Yes.
Yeah, it was but completely different to the reels and how we consume video these days. But it was a lot more about the photography days, the beautiful imagery, which for me at the time was like, oh, I'm just getting into this. I had a photography background because I did that at college, but not with food. So completely out of my depth. And I just remember looking at, other Instagrammers at the time, the bloggers at the time, saying, how are you getting this beautiful imagery with your food? And I was like, how does this work? And then, go through learning how to make food look incredible for Instagram and for our blog. But yeah, completely different, because you could post images, especially of food, and it would get loads of reach, thousands of likes. And now, it's changed a lot over the years.
Yeah, it's a little more challenging now. So what prompted you to start your blog after 1 year of being on Instagram?
I think it was just to have a more, what do I mean? Just, a more fully sort of functioning area rather than just the caption. So you could have much more room to speak with your audience and sort of connect with them on a more sort of long form basis. Not that Instagram was particularly short form, but I feel like it was another layer that I really wanted to give to our audience that would offer more content and more of a question and answer area. You can add your FAQs in, and you could do a lot more with a blog, I felt, than that you could do with just Instagram time.
Yeah. Well, I like how you put that, just adding a new layer to your business, which is really good because it's diversification, right? It's always smart to do.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So Instagram, you guys are clearly crushing it. When did you start seeing a lot of success with that? Was it right off the bat? Was it after a few years?
No, so right off the bat, we did have some good success. And then sort of as things changed and our priorities maybe were not on the platform, they were on growing the blog, we ended up kind of putting Instagram on the back burner for a while. Like I didn't really know how to make video, so I was, I just got to the point where I was so happy with my photography, and then all of a sudden video is king.
Welcome.
So
yes.
yeah, like, okay, I've just spent years working on this. No, and then reels come in and I was like, okay, I've got no clue. I'm just going to kind of post, put the posting on Instagram sort of like a few times a week with images, focus on the blog, get that to a place where we're happy, and then come back to the Instagram. And I would say I spent a lot of last year doing a lot of trial and error, just really trying to work out a style, trying to work out what worked for our content, what worked for our reels, what worked for our audience, and then delved into the analytics. And I would have said around September times, some traction. It was our first reel that got, like, I think it was about 200,000 followers.
Nice.
200,000 views.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of snowballed after that. I just got so into the analytics, and I really went deep into what was working, what wasn't, looking at what was working for other people as well, and then looking at how people put together the reels for like the best effects, so that people really get drawn into the content. And then I would say it all sort of kind of started snowballing in Veganuary for vegans in January. And we started posting twice a day in January. And we just said, because we were really stuck at about 37,000 followers for some time. We'd hovered around that number. And then as soon as we just said, we're going all in on this, I've done so much research. I've, put all of this effort in, it's got to work. And then it just started snowballing, and people started to see our content and interact with it a lot more. And we were getting huge numbers on the reels. And then just the biggest thing was to just do more of what was working.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Like, look at what's working and do more of that. It seems like we overcomplicate things so often, especially with Instagram. It seems to be this ever-changing thing that we just can't figure out. But I love that you just buckled down and you were like, okay, analytics, what's working? Let's do more of that. So what things came out of that you're utilizing now in your strategy?
So it was niching down. So we started, because we really had to start trying experimenting with stuff, because I hadn't felt that things had been working really, really well. So we just thought, we've got to try different types of content. We've got to try different ways of putting the reels together. And then we just sort of went, well, we really love tofu, so we'll do some tofu recipes. And they started really getting noticed. And then we decided to do a tofu science sort of experiment. We're not scientists. There was a lot. There's a lot online about how of people who are just don't like tofu. They are just like, no, the texture is awful. And then there are the tofu people who absolutely love it and will eat it, direct out of the packet without any seasoning or anything. So like, we're not quite there. What we decided was to look at the techniques that people had been talking about, online for a long time. And we just sort of decided, right, we're going to do experiments, and we're going to, a really, really big thing to do with tofu is to put in the freezer and freeze it, and then it becomes more meaty and it takes on marinades once it's defrosted, and you can actually do that process twice. And that was the first video for us that really exploded. I think it's over like 3.4 million views now.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we were just like, it's working. So then we ended up turning that into a series, just knowing that was something that was really working for us. We kind of really slid into that and started working a lot more with tofu. And I think we did about 8 experiments in sort of like the first series, and we've got more to come, because we noticed that when we do tofu stuff, it just performs a lot better than any other type of content.
Do you do things outside of tofu on Instagram?
Yeah, we'll do other stuff as well, because I can't eat tofu for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, even though, maybe one day, that would be fine for one day. But no, I had to have a break. Yeah. So we have been making other things, and other stuff has, is performing well, a hell of a lot better than anything would have performed on our account this time last year. It's just that nothing is performing as well as the tofu stuff.
Isn't that interesting? Instagram just decides, or the people who follow you on Instagram decide, I don't know, maybe all of the above.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, they're the tofu experts.
It's so funny. Like, people are like, oh, tofu king and queen in our comments. And we're like, oh, okay.
You're like, oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, that's a really interesting comment, though, that you said Instagram decides, or, the people decide, or the people both together decide. And someone said to me the other day, like, how does it work then? You post something that's a tofu related reel, and then Instagram goes, oh, these are the tofu people. Yeah. We better give this loads of reach. And I don't actually think it works like that. So I think what happens is people become, in the first sort of like couple of hours, your followers who Instagram will be testing it with go, I really like this, and there's a lot of engagement. And then Instagram gets the picture and starts pushing it out because it wants more people to see it, because it's already sort of like realized that the people that already follow you like that content. So I just wonder about that, and that's what I think anyway. But no, there is no there's no one rule for how the algorithm works. I don't think anybody really knows.
No, I love how you said that. So people see it, they engage with it, and then that's the trigger for Instagram to say, oh, okay, it's tofu content, so we're going to make them the tofu king and queen. But yeah, like you said, who knows how it actually works, but that is what it seems like, right?
Yeah, it definitely does seem that way.
Okay, so once you figure out what your little niche is in Instagram, you guys are tofu, what do you do from there to gain more traction?
So we have a content plan, and we have a commitment to ourselves and to each other that we're going to be sticking to that content plan. And it just sounds so simple, but it's so hard when you've got the content plan, but then, bloggers know all about this. You have to move things around. I might put that into next week now, but we've just said that if we're going to carry on and it's going to be working and we're going to be growing still, we have to be so committed to this content plan and to the things that are working that we really just don't have any excuses to go, we're not going to do this today, or we're going to move that to next week, because we're just not going to.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to do it. You have to act like your boss, your own boss, right? Sometimes and be like, you have to do this. You don't have another choice. And just being so consistent with it.
Exactly. The consistency is absolutely everything. I know anyone who talks about Instagram is like, it's the consistency. And to me, it doesn't matter really like what time you're posting, as long as you're doing it. And, there are better times to post for your audience. But at the same time, if it's going to perform, it's going to perform.
So with consistency, do you feel like you need to figure out a number of days per week that you post, or is it not quite that consistent?
I think it all depends on your goals. So if your goal is to, get 1 million reel views or to grow your followers, I think you need to be posting not just once a week. I think you need to be posting every day, or 6 days out of 7, because I just think for it to work, you've got to try so many things, and testing all of the stuff out means that you just need to get it out there and not hold back.
So I've heard you say this a few times, just that experimentation piece is huge. Just being willing to dig into your analytics, yes, and be consistent, but like also experimenting with what that means for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you're not getting the reach and the exposure that you're wanting from the content that you've been posting so far, it's not really it's not the algorithm's fault, it's not your followers' fault. There's something that's not hitting. So I think you have to think outside the box and try other methods and other types of content. And I don't mean other types of content like not recipes, I just mean different types of recipes, and your approach to how you're positioning the content may need to change.
So once you find something that really seems to work in your account, what do you do with it from there?
Do you mean sort of like as a theme, or do you mean as an individual?
So like you've figured out, like, let's say, tofu works and 3 days a week posting reels works. Do you just stick to that, or do you do other experimentation?
I would say stick to it, because a really big thing for Instagram is consistency. So if you're going to be posting, if you're going to be posting 3 times one week 5 the next and then 1 the next. It gives mixed signals to Instagram and to your audience. So I think sticking to what you've set out for yourself and using your stories and using your broadcast channel and engaging with your followers and engaging with your comments and letting people know, if you're going to be posting 3 times per week, let people know to expect those posts 3 times per week. So I would say the most important thing is to stick to your schedule, be consistent, and then over time, you see the results.
And you kind of learn what the platform and what people want from you there. Do stories play into this too?
Yeah, I think stories play into it. I don't think having too many stories on is needed, but I think it's a really good way to engage with your most engaged followers and sort of you get a personal sort of relationship going with your most engaged followers, who are going to be the people that are responding to your stories.
Isn't it a way to just make people kind of like you more? Like you're presenting a personal, real side of yourself in that way? That's what I feel like stories are really good at.
I think so. And I think it's because it's a lot more relaxed. You can talk about different stuff, like something funny that might have happened, or like we're talking about the cat that we've got with us and getting advice from people and connecting people with people that way. And, it's also what we found on stories, because the grid is quite hard and reels are quite hard to get traffic to your website. But we've found in stories, it's a lot easier, because if you say, oh, I'll DM you if you want the recipe, and then you end up getting 100 people going, I really want that recipe. So you can actually send them links. So you can kind of build in some traffic driving as well.
Hello there, food blogger friends. I want to take a really quick break from this episode to chat about a few ways Eat Blog Talk can help you to feel connected, as well as to get your hands on relevant, valuable information in 2024. It has been a bit of a tumultuous year so far. Do you agree? But you have come too far to stop now. This time is a minor blip in the journey, so buckle up and let's do this journey together and come out on the other side stronger than ever. Eat Blog Talk now has a Facebook group. Go join the Eat Blog Talk community Facebook group to get in on some great discussions. Once you're inside, you will gain access to a free job postings shared document, whether you're offering a service or looking for a service. There's also the new-ish accountability group that Eat Blog Talk offers. This group is a low investment membership for anyone looking to connect with peers and grow your business. This is for newer bloggers, intermediate bloggers, and experienced bloggers. We offer robust calls and Slack discussions and so much more in this group for the low cost of $34 a month. The Eat Blog Talk Mini Minds and Mastermind groups are still being offered in 2024 and beyond. Mini Minds groups start up again in October, and we will start filling the 2025 Mastermind group in late summer of 24. Join the waitlist for one of these groups, and you will not be disappointed. And last but not least, join us at an in-person retreat. If you are ready to learn, grow, and build relationships in person, join me and a handful of your fellow food bloggers at an upcoming Eat Blog Talk retreat. This is such a great opportunity to convene in an intimate setting so you can learn, collaborate, and connect. These retreats involve mastermind-style peer-to-peer collaborating, and they're incredibly powerful, delicious, so much good food, and fun. For all the offerings mentioned, head to eatblogtalk.com and you will be directed in the appropriate way. We are more than just a podcast. Go explore some of these other offerings as your time and budget allows. Can't wait to see you in some of those other places. Now back to the episode. Okay, I am curious about Reels because this is a new thing. It doesn't seem to be going away either, right? Do you feel like Reels are sticking around?
Yeah, I don't think Reels are going to go away.
Okay. I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but you kind of said it like, yeah, I don't think so. Do you think it's bad news or do you think it's good news?
I think it's good news. I think it's really, I think Reels are fun. I think, how TikTok is the biggest competitor to Instagram. They're not getting rid of TikToks and their videos. So I don't think Instagram will.
Okay. I think that is good news too, because we're kind of getting used to it. We're in this groove of like, okay, Reels are here. We need to learn them. Do you have any tips for Reels for us?
Yeah, for sure. I think I keep coming back to consistency, but I think if anyone looked at my account, you would see that the way that the reels play out are almost exactly the same, dependent no matter what the recipe is. So I've got a formula that I kind of stick to for how it will for how I think I'm going to get it to blow
Oh,
up or to
okay.
get bigger reach. But I also have part of that formula is how I put the reel together. So I always use the same background. I'm using basically the same plate depending on the recipe, not always, but because the style's the same, I feel like you can mix up your plates. But the first, I think the consistency and getting people to recognize it's you, I think you need to be consistent with the way that the reel plays out. Like maybe I'm waffling a bit, but I've noticed that it really worked when I just decided I'm not going to try different things for every reel as far as
Ah.
the way the reel plays out goes. So every clip that I'm arranging, that I'm putting onto the reel is like, okay, we're going to have the hero shot first, and that's going to have movement. And then we're going to do some more yummy shots, and that's going to be 4 seconds, 4 to 5 seconds. And then we're going to have the tasting. Then we're going to go into, the most important part of what we're cooking. And then it all kind of plays out in a paced way. For me, it's like quick paced, not too slow, not too fast, but at pace, especially if you've got the music and you've got the voiceover. It's all kind of layering up and is fun to watch. And so I think for our account and for our content, it needs to be at that sort of like mid-tempo. So things are happening quickly so people don't get bored, but not so quick that they don't know what's happening.
So what works on your account is not necessarily going to work on my account. So it really does go back to that experimentation and finding what works for you, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that there are some things that you can say will work for everyone, like using a hook in the beginning of the video, but the type of hook that will work won't necessarily be the same, and the visual hook won't necessarily be the same. So I think that there's like theory that will work for every food blogger's account to a degree, but then how it visually looks and plays out may be very different. It may be that there are so many accounts that are crushing it right now whose reels are quite slow. Like we have food adverts, so we called Marks and Spencers, and it's a luxury food brand, and their TV advertising is all about yumminess, and everything's done really slowly to really draw out how yummy everything is. And there are some content creators that are just nailing that style so well, but I know if I did it, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I see like so many consistent themes with what you're saying, like the consistency and the experimentation and what is working for you. The hook does seem to be something that a lot of successful food bloggers are really nailing, right? Like if you can nail that hook and get people to watch the whole reel, I think that is so huge.
Yeah, for sure, because I think time watched is one of the biggest factors right now. And if you can get people to watch twice or 1.5 times, then that's such a strong signal to Instagram that people are enjoying your content. And so it will keep on getting put in front of more people.
Do you feel like the hook is hard to figure out for people?
Yeah, I think it's really hard for people to figure out the hook, and especially to figure out which ones you've got confidence to use and which ones you kind of shy away from. I think is another thing as well. And I was like, oh, is that too? Is that too out there, right? Sort of thing. Like I remember doing one that was I quite liked actually in the end, that like it was like, this is so wrong, it's right, and it just kind of felt a little bit cringe, but also it worked really well. So I was like, oh, I stand by it.
Yeah, it's so wrong, it's right. I love that. Yeah, I mean, with food, it can be really hard to pull out like what is going to pull people in, unless it's something just like a crazy, cheesy, gooey bite or something like that. But if it's just like a salad or everyday food, how do we think about a hook in that way?
I think we can think about visual hooks and spoken hooks. So the visual hook for the food is going to be that we all know is the hero shot, the gooeyest, like whatever you think the hero bit about the recipe is, that's it. But then the spoken hook isn't necessarily about the food at all. So thinking about the spoken hook in a completely different way to how you think about the food itself was a really big learning lesson for me.
That is so great for you to say because I don't always think of that. I always think visually. When I'm thinking of food, I think, oh, what could we see with the salad? But it doesn't have to be visual. It can be what we say. Like, I don't know, I devoured this in 2 minutes or something like that just to pull people in and get their attention.
Or something that's really going to like get them intrigued.
Yeah.
So I think we did one that really spoke, like that got people talking, was like, if you've been doing this, then you've been wasting your time.
Ooh.
So it's not even about what it tastes like. It's not even about how you make it or how good it is. It's about something completely different. And it's like pushing buttons, but in like a fun way. It's definitely not serious, but it's in a super fun way, and that gets people to watch longer.
Yeah. And interesting that you have a marketing background because this is how marketers think. They think what is going to pull people in right away.
Yeah, that's it. So I've kind of been used to doing that for most of my career. Like I've worked in marketing for 10 years, sort of like starting at the very, very bottom and my qualifications. And I went through, so I ran the social media team at the world's first green energy company, and then sort of like went on and ran my own social media agency on the side of building my blog. So it's been, a wild ride, because when you consider like 10 years ago, TikTok didn't even exist.
Right.
It changes so quickly.
Oh my gosh, it does. I feel like the food bloggers and Instagram accounts that have marketing as a background do so well because it's more and more important that we have that top of mind, just like what is going to pull people in right away and keep them. So I think you definitely have an advantage with that. Do you have any other tips from that perspective as far as like how, not necessarily with the hook, but just how to engage people a little bit more in Instagram?
Yeah, always. Like, I think everyone says this, but I think the caption of the reel is really important as well, and telling people what to do from that caption. So, DM or comment below and just ask a question. So it could be something like, comment if you want the recipe, if you haven't already included the recipe, and that can help build your engagement. And it's something that I think people stop doing for a while, and maybe people shy away from because it feels a bit bossy. But I've actually found over maybe the last year that I definitely see people are so used to that. And I think when you see people going, DM me this word or comment this word below, you get lots of people doing it because if they've given value and they want it, they're going to comment.
And I think people like being told what to do a little bit, right? Like they don't like waffling and like, I don't know, where am I supposed to go? They kind of like that bossiness from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree, especially when it's so easy to get distracted on social media. So if you're engaged in something and then they're saying, do this thing, it's like, okay, I'll do that next.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like you're reaching your hand in and pulling them out and guiding them a little bit.
Yes.
Yes. Is there anything else with Reels specifically that you want to mention that could really help people grow?
Just considering the music that you're using, I think, is one way of growing as well. So going for not necessarily the music that you like, but the music that's trending. And as long as it suits the reel that you're making, I think trying to use music that is currently on the rise is a really smart thing to do.
Have you experimented with music versus voiceovers?
I always use both.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Because I think it layers the sound and makes it more inviting.
No, I agree. I've experimented with that a little bit too. And I like how it sounds. You have to get just the right volume, right? Like experiment with that. But versus just the voiceover, I feel like that's a little dry for my taste. But I know some accounts that do really well with that too.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose that's just another example of like what works for me won't work for the next person. And I think it just shows how much opportunity there is still, even now, that so many different things are working for people. It's still worth putting energy into it.
Is there anything outside of what we've already talked about that we can start experimenting with when it comes to seeing what works on Instagram?
Maybe trends. Just thinking about a trend, for instance, that came out recently was that it was like smashed potatoes, but as a salad. We were like, oh, okay. So how could we make this us if we wanted to do that? So we were like, well, we'll put tofu into it. We've got this whole thing where we're doing double tofu, so two types of tofu in one dish. And so we ended up doing like tofu-y, bacony crumbs on the top, and also for the dressing using silken tofu, and that made up the bulk of the creamy dressing. So thinking about what trends are coming out and making them your own. So even if it's something like a smashed potato salad, that's just what it is by itself, but how can you make it your own? And I think that's the best way of jumping on trends.
Do you carry that over to your blog as well, or do you think of that solely as like an Instagram experiment?
Oh, I think it's more an Instagram experiment for me at the moment, because I find a lot more of our blog content is more SEO led.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they don't always cross over.
No, I think that's another really, really big learning for me, was that I was doing Instagram secondary to the blog content. So not that it's secondarily important, it was just came off the back of the blog content. So I would do a recipe for the blog, and then I would share the exact same recipe on the blog as a reel, or not necessarily a well done reel, but it would still be a reel. But I found that the way that I come up with recipes for the blog and that perform on the blog is completely different type of content that performs on Instagram. So I was trying to streamline there by making sure that the blog content informs the Instagram reels, but for me it just doesn't work.
Okay. And then do you take into account the time of day that you publish on Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's important to look at your analytics and see when your audience is most active, and then sort of post maybe 20 to 30 minutes before that time. That's what I tend to do. To be honest, I'm not always the best at getting it out at the perfect time for my account every day, but if I miss a slot, I'm still going to post it, and I'm still going to post it as long as it's not the middle of the night. If it's say if I need to post at 4:30 and then I miss that, I'm going to post it by 7.
Do you use scheduling tools at all?
I use the Instagram scheduler. I quite like it, but it's buggy. It's buggy,
okay.
so that's the downside. That's the downside. Sometimes I remember I've pressed schedule before, but it posted it, and I was like, no.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big bug.
Yeah, that was a big bug. I don't think it does that anymore, but I don't tend to use scheduling a lot. If I'm going away, I definitely will. And I tend to schedule because I'm still doing carousel posts, and I find them to be really good for driving traffic. So I will schedule those ahead of time because I feel like they're just easier to schedule using Meta's Meta Suite.
Okay. So you schedule the carousels, and then the reels you just do live?
Generally, yeah.
Okay. Do you find, or have you heard of scheduling tools impacting the traction you get on Instagram?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I probably haven't experimented enough to have a strong opinion on it, but I think the scheduling tools are just so handy. If it's working for you, I think they're great, but maybe it could be worth stepping away from the scheduler for a month and seeing how it goes when you're just directly sharing to Instagram. I think, for businesses, it's not that easy to be able to share that many posts. If you're posting more than once a day, it can get really hard. Even when we were posting twice per day in January, so I was sharing a lot of old content that I re-edited and put into the content schedule, and I was scheduling a lot more then, because 2 a day is just, I just need to be organized.
That's a lot. I know I've only published 4 a week on my eBlog Talk side, and that feels like a lot to me, like especially if we're on vacation or if it's the weekend and I know I have to get something up. It's just inconvenient. I wish there was some magic scheduler that was like, I don't know, didn't have the bugs and all the weird things. Like music for me is really hard because we like really specific music to go into our reels, but you can't get the volumes right in a scheduler. So you just kind of have to publish live if you want things just the way you want them.
I found that as well. Especially, I was trying to use MetaSuite to schedule the reels, but the volume controls were really hard to use. And so I just thought I'm going to have to do this either manually, but if you can schedule it on your Instagram from your phone, and when it's not bugging out, it's quite good.
Okay.
I just find I want to remember each day what time it's going so that I can be around and like to share it to the stories and to answer comments and stuff. So I guess that's one downside as well. You have to, even though you scheduled it, I always think, I need to be around so that I can like make sure that I'm giving this post the best chance.
Right. So you might as well just publish it live, I guess, and be available anyway. Save the stress. Yeah, I've just been like throwing a ton of questions at you. I hope that's okay. I have one more question and then I'll make sure that we've covered everything. When you go into analytics, I know you've mentioned that a few times. Is there anything specific you think we should look at if we're just trying to get a handle on what people are liking, like times of publish, like anything like that?
Yeah, I think looking at the watch time is really interesting to see at what point of the video people are kind of tailing off and moving on to the next piece of content. So you can see that maybe that's when they got bored and consider what was happening on screen at that time and reasons that for that people were exiting at that point. So I think that's really interesting, and that's maybe like a pacing issue, or maybe there was too much stirring, which can get quite boring, but is a key part of cooking. So I think that's a really important one. And then the times I think is important to look at when people are online. And even though I'm not a stickler for that, but it's best to give yourself the best chance possible. So using that. And then I also like to look at saves, because it's such a big indicator that people are like, okay, I love this so much, I'm going to need to come back to it later. And if one post is outshining everything else for the saves, it's probably performing better as well. But that's a really strong indicator that you should make more content like that because your audience love it. Okay,
those are great places to start. I know analytics for me can be a little bit overwhelming, so I just like having kind of a little bit of a guide when I go in there.
Yeah, it's so handy.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you feel would round out this conversation that we haven't touched on, Jess?
I just think touching on how we've talked about consistency, but I always like to think of it as compound theory as well. So the thought that you can, continue in doing small actions consistently that lead to small wins, but then over time leads to really big wins. I think that's something to really just keep front of mind when you're trying to grow your Instagram account, because it might seem like at the time it's getting 1,000 views, but that's 1,000 views, that's really good. And if you got 1,000 views for 30 days, that's 30,000 views, and then over time that's going to increase if you just keep on taking the small action every day.
Love that. And that applies to so many parts of our business too, right? Like our blog. I mean, just consistency, showing up day in and day out for anything is going to pay off eventually. So love that. Great way to end. Thank you for all of this. This gives us a great handle on what's working right now on Instagram. So we really appreciate you and everything you shared today.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. And I love talking about this stuff. So, I could just go on and on, but that'd get really boring.
Do you have a favorite quote or words of inspiration to leave us with, Jess?
Yes. The thing that instantly sprang to mind when you said this was feel the fear and do it anyway. Something that's just been with me since I was a teenager. When you get scared of putting yourself out there or trying something, and it's just kind of like, oh, do it anyway. Just feel that and do it anyway. It just really speaks to me.
Oh, I love that so much. Yes, totally agree with that. We will put together a show notes page for you, Jess. If you want to go check those out, head to eatblogtalk.com/veganpunks. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yes, it's at vegan_punks for our food blog Instagram, and for my Instagram tips and tricks and my accelerator, that's at Hey Jess Saunders on Instagram as well.
Everyone go check Jess out and all her accounts. Thank you again so much, Jess, for being here. And thank you for listening, food bloggers. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Eat Blog Talk. Please share this episode with a friend who would benefit from tuning in. I will see you next time.